everybody. Welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. And today I'm joined by Aliza Licht, the founder and president of Leave Your Mark, which is a consultancy specializing in creative brand marketing and digital strategy. She's also an author of a book by the same name and host of the Leave Your Mark podcast. So Aliza today is going to be talking with us about marketing and branding, given the current environment, and we're very excited to have her. So Aliza, thank you so much for joining.
It's a pleasure, Melissa. It's good to see you.
It's been a while.
Yes.
So let's get into it. So Aliza, before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background? I know you have a really interesting background with DKNY and what you're doing now with Leave Your Mark.
Sure. I've been in fashion for over 20 years. I started in the magazine side of the business and moved over to corporate communications at Donna Karan and DKNY in the late 90s. And ended up spending 17 years of my career there, starting out at the bottom and making my way up to Senior Vice President of Global Communications by the time I left in 2015. I am most proud and known for my work in digital, which I had created a social media personality called DKNY PR Girl back in the day in 2009 that was anonymous, modeled after Gossip Girl, and that sort of led to me writing in a lot of different places and ultimately a book deal. So that's how Leave Your Mark was born. And it is a career mentorship, not just for people in fashion, but certainly through the lens of fashion. And now it's a podcast. When I left Donna Karan in 2015, which is when my book came out, I started consulting. And I did that for 10 months. And felt like it really was not as successful as I hoped it would be. And I started to really miss being part of an organization and being part of a team. So I went back in-house to Alice and Olivia, and I was head of marketing and communications there for 2.5 years. And then this past March, I got that creative bug again, and I decided to spread my wings a little bit, go out on my own, and launch the podcast. So now, my consultancy, I don't know if this is by design or this is just what people call me for, but it really is heavily based in digital content strategy, but not just the strategy, which I love, but also the ideation and the production of those assets. So I, previous to the pandemic, was doing a lot of shooting, a lot of creative direction, and then mapping how those assets would be used and in what mediums.
Specific part of it, and I think that's a really important part of it, and it's kind of going to be some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. So as you just discussed, a lot of what you talk about is marketing and branding, and I would love that to be the focus today. So many of the retail marketers that I've been talking to are sort of wondering about how best to promote and market their brands right now. They don't know the right tone to take. I mean, it's really an issue that they're having. So I would wonder if you have any advice or best practices there.
Yeah, certainly. So first of all, I wrote a piece on this for Forbes right when the pandemic happened. And it is how to lead and market your brand during a crisis. I think we have, things have evolved since March. And I think certainly in the beginning, it was really walking on eggshells and really, you could really see the brands that were tone deaf and just acting as if nothing had happened. And now I think we're all kind of aligned in the way that we know this has been the biggest thing to happen to anyone in the entire world in 100 years. Mm-hmm. And I think, really leading with service and your value proposition as well as empathy is the key to marketing right now. So looking at your line and thinking about what problem are you solving? What is a service you're providing? Are you giving your consumers a reason to open your emails beyond selling to them? Mm-hmm. So I think really thinking about what you can offer your consumers that isn't just, hey, our new handbags are here. Because at this point, where are we going? I haven't touched a handbag since March. And it saddens me. Believe me, it saddens me. But it's true. So thinking about your, what do you have in your collection that people could use right this second? And if you were planning, the best summer dress, whatever, the best cocktail dresses of summer story on email, you might want to rethink that. So I think any marketing that was originally strategized and mapped and put on a content calendar has to be completely relooked at.
Mm-hmm.
And some brands haven't done that, by the way.
I mean, that kind of dovetails into what I was going to ask. I mean, you were mentioning handbags and stuff. I mean, is it, how can you sell like a handbag or eye cream or other services without seeming insensitive? I mean, or maybe a better way to put it is, how can you sort of keep loyal with your customers if you're selling this kind of merchandise?
So I think putting it into the context of what everyone's doing right now, right? We are all home. So don't talk to me about the best handbag I need for my summer travels, because I'm not going anywhere. So thinking about how we can market to the future in a way that respects the present. So I don't really care that celebrity X has worn that handbag. That's not going to make me buy something right now. But I can dream about a time in the future where I will be going, from meeting to meeting, and maybe want a new bag that's going to carry my laptop, because we all are obviously hoping that this turns around sooner than later. As far as eye cream and self-care, anything that's at home, ritualistic, is great for now. And I think the way that you speak to the consumer is really, you have to put yourself in her shoes. It's like, how do you want to be spoken to right now? For me personally, and you might be different, Melissa, I want to know the value of that product. Like, how is it made? What properties does that eye cream have that I need right now? So I think storytelling as to the virtue of the product, like, is that handbag sewn by hand by, X woman in X country, and a portion of proceeds is going back to X. Like, telling that story of why that product exists to me is a great way to market right now, as opposed to a lot of the marketing that we've seen previously, which was so occasion-based and venue-based. Like, you're going for happy hour, you're wearing this. You're going for Sunday brunch, you're wearing this. Okay, so no one's going anywhere. What are we doing? So tell me about why I need your product.
Right. It's almost like you have time to delve into it. You almost have time to like read about it and have a connection with it.
Yes. And also, by the way, like, every brand should be thinking about right now, like, what is their reason for being? Like, go back to your DNA. Why did you start in the first place? What's your value proposition? What was your value proposition when you launched? Is it still the same?
Totally. So moving on to another type of marketing, I had a call yesterday with an influencer marketing expert, and she said that, or she believes that influencer marketing is here to stay, but that it's changing and it's more about real world versus like aspirational. Do you have any thoughts there? And
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. So, so full disclosure, I am a founding board member of the American Influencer Council, which is the first trade organization for influencers. And it has actually, it exists as a site, but it has not technically been announced yet.
Oh, that's interesting.
I have a real point of view on this. And I think influencer marketing is here to stay. And I think for the time being, aspiration is not what we're going for. And I think that's fair. That's a fair comment. It's not going to always be that way. That said, I think fashion influencers need to come up with a different angle right now. And you've seen some of them do that very well, where it's really about quarantine life and how you're living your fashion life at home.
That's great. And then along the same lines of influencer, I mean, are there any like other channels that are good to use right now in terms of, I don't know, TV, social, other types of social?
Yes, for sure. So TikTok is a major player right now. And I think, it's not for every brand, but certainly if you can figure out a great TikTok strategy, it is the time to go on that platform, because the odds of you building a really nice audience there are high. I think Pinterest is also like a really great breeding ground right now. And I think Pinterest for years has been sort of like this stepchild platform that maybe you used when you were decorating a house or, getting married, but it certainly moves the needle as far as revenue drivers for brands that use it well. And I think in general right now, we're going back a little bit to a time when, I don't know, I kind of love an at-home catalog. Like, I don't think marketing needs to just be digital right now. In fact, I would say if you're going the opposite route, you're probably even smarter because there's so much right now, and everyone's on their phone and everyone's doing a live and everyone's pushing out so much content, just like regular people are pushing out so much content, not even influencers, that it's overwhelming. So I think going back to some of the more analog tactics that we used to use, I think could be quite effective.
It's so funny you should say that. I've heard that a lot of people are talking about like direct mail and, print and catalogs. And I think Crate and Barrel, they just put out a new catalog, which they haven't done in I think maybe a year. So I think that's so interesting.
I mean, look at Restoration Hardware.
Yeah.
Their catalog must be like $4 million.
Yeah.
A customer.
So in terms of marketing, again, there's also a lot of talk right now about like the pros and cons of discounting versus being like overly promotional. What's your feeling on that?
Don't discount. Don't do it. No, here actually, in the Leave Your Mark Live that you had watched yesterday with Rebecca Minkoff, we spoke about this. And my feeling is always start as you mean to go, right? If you're going to participate in things like Friends and Family and Memorial Weekend Sale, things like that are sort of anniversary comp initiatives, of course you're going to do those things. But if you go into panic mode right now and you start discounting like crazy, it's impossible to come back from that. The consumer is not going to tolerate it. They're going to be like, whoa, wait, where's that 80% off again?
Right.
So I just think, the habits you create with the consumer, they stick. So if you don't want to be on 80% off all the time and you think you're going to get your consumer to go back to full price after that, it's going to be very hard. That said, you can be creative with the way that you come up with how to move inventory, whether it's like a fun gamified thing where you spin a wheel and all of a sudden you get a certain % off and you can choose from a certain bucket, or make it something that it's like a pandemic special of like, you're at home, you have time, like play this game, or like, what personality are you? And then all of a sudden, you open up into a tab that's just product curated for you, just something that's more creative than here's 85 million % off. Hope you buy our stuff.
Right. It's almost like screaming, like we're having issues, like we need to get rid of the stuff, as opposed to making it more subtle,
Yes.
Which is what you were saying. It's almost like you have to think long-term. You can't think short-term,
Yes. Well, the industry as a whole has gotten themselves into quite a pickle with discounting.
Mm-hmm. So are there any brands or they could be retailers or not, but any like brands out there that you think are doing a particularly good job right now in terms of how they're handling the whole thing, in terms of how they're branding, marketing, anything that comes to mind that you've seen?
Yes, Starbucks is one of them.
Oh, really?
Yes. Starbucks. So Starbucks China, obviously, was the biggest retailer to be hit first, right? And I believe the chief executive is Belinda Wong, and she closed, I think it was 4,300 locations, which amounted to about 58,000 employees, which then extended family means she's pretty much responsible for like 300,000 people.
Wow.
And their livelihoods. So that's a big load to carry. And I think that the level of empathy that she showed her employees was pretty remarkable. And then how that trickled down to the consumer in the certain locations that were still open, or when they went to, the curbside mobile pickup, it was, instead of your typical code that you get when you're picking up your order, it was, and instead of your name being on your order, it was words of inspiration. Like,
oh, wow,
tomorrow is a new day, spring is coming. So this constant inspiring message as you're picking up your coffee, I think, and even at home delivery too, everything was switched over from like your name and your code to words of inspiration. So
wow, that's awesome.
I think that's awesome too. And so I think that was a best in class example. I think, I always have been a marketer who looks outside of fashion for inspiration and guidance. And I think it's really important not to have those blinders on when you're thinking about your marketing strategy.
Right.
Love what Bud Light did when this first happened. They made a microsite of all the places that you can order locally, curbside or delivery. So you just went onto budlight.com, you typed in your zip code, and it listed all the restaurants that you could order from. So again, putting your brand front and center, because I'm going on budlight.com, but providing a service that understands the time we're living in at that minute, and also delivering the empathy needed for me to say, oh my God, they actually care where I'm getting my food from right now. And by the way, if I need beer again, I'm going to think of Bud Light.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another.
That's amazing.
Good example.
So they went in and like found out the restaurants that sold their beer that were like open for this
I don't think
period?
it was about selling their beer at all. I don't even think necessarily they cared if they sold their beer. It was a pure service to help you navigate where you can get your food.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
I was looking for a site like that, to be honest, because you don't know in your neighborhoods, you know?
True.
That's amazing. Okay, so I just have one more question.
Sure.
The current environment that we're in, there's been a lot of change in consumer behavior. I don't have to list them, but we all know what they, just different ways of consumers, how they behave around shopping. Do you think it's going to stay the same, or do you think it's going to change for the good or bad?
I think it's going to be like this for a while. I think that if you don't need to go into a store, you're not going to go into a store. Mm-hmm. So in a way, the luxury services that we know luxury brands have provided for their top customers forever, that level of service now needs to be spread out to the masses by any brand. So, the top customer of Louis Vuitton, I'm sure, never had to go into the store. It was handpicked, it was delivered, white glove service. Well, guess what? That's now needs to go for everyone. So having the staff to accommodate that, right? That's a big thing. So I think that the other thing that's really important is we've all seen now the brands that were, and especially in fashion, like work from home was so looked down upon. Like you could never ask to work from home. That was not a thing in our industry. Mm-hmm. And now we all see not only can everyone do it, but it's actually really efficient, right? We're not wasting time. I mean, there's so much time wasted in the office. So really thinking about how to have a nimble team, how you can turn on a dime, how you can put new strategies into place. I think retail as a whole has been so set in its way as far as like, well, this is how we do it. It's like, that doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter how you did it before. You have to be able to innovate on any given day and figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I think right now it's the remote strategy. It's how can you be as efficient as possible in your teams. And, ultimately I had a conversation this week about, fashion trends, and some people think like, oh, we're going to go back to maximalism because everyone's going to be so excited to get dressed and like, wear their whole closet at one time and go out. And by the way, I think I'm one of those people. But then there's other people who are like, you know what? Like this at-home lounging situation works really well for me. And I love the slowdown. And I think, it's all given us the ability to pause. It's really hard to pause when no one else is pausing. But right now, the amount of self-reflection that everyone's doing on their life, on their work versus life, on the balance between the two, I think it's a real positive. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom that's come out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. I've had conversations too with retailers about how it's almost like you don't want to go back to the old way of doing things. It's a chance to reflect and change for the better. I've even heard that there's going to be more focus on sustainability now, just because people have more time to like analyze the supply chain and see what the sort of roadblocks are. Mm-hmm. So I think I agree with you.
You raise a great point. The supply chain is a huge, huge topic. That has been, I think, for people that didn't have a handle on their supply chain or were relying on too many sort of middlemen, if you will, like you need to mobilize quickly, and you need to be able, like Brooks Brothers, for example, they turned really early into making masks. Like obviously they have a great handle on their supply chain.
Yeah.
So you can see who really was prepared and who had to really hustle to get there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. So thank you so much for joining me, Aliza, on this episode. And thanks to everyone listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com/podcast for show notes. And Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. And make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel as well. So until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.